Before revelation reshaped the world, before messages descended from the heavens, before history turned on a single soul entrusted with a universal mission, there was a woman whose faith arrived early, quietly, decisively. She did not wait for miracles to believe. She did not need crowds to affirm her certainty. Her conviction was born from character, from trust earned over years of honesty, integrity, and compassion. Love, in her understanding, was not sentiment alone. It was loyalty under pressure, support in uncertainty, and presence when the path ahead was unclear. She saw greatness before the world knew how to name it, not through prophecy, but through perception. She recognized truth in conduct, mercy in dealings, sincerity in silence. When others measured worth by wealth or status, she measured it by trustworthiness. And when she chose with clarity and courage, defying norms not out of rebellion, but out of principle. Her decision reshaped not only her own life, but the moral architecture of generations to come. When fear first descended, when the weight of revelation trembled the human frame carrying it, she did not question, doubt, or retreat. She became shelter. She became reassurance. Her words steadied a shaken heart, not with empty comfort, but with reasoned conviction. She reminded him of who he was, of the good he had always embodied, of the truth that a life spent in justice does not culminate in abandonment. In that moment, belief was not theoretical, it was lived. Faith spoke through calm presence and unwavering certainty. Support for her was not passive, it was active sacrifice. She gave wealth when wealth meant security. She gave comfort when comfort was scarce. She gave status when status could have shielded her. She understood that causes greater than the self-demand contributions that cannot be reclaimed. Her generosity was not loud, but it was foundational. Movements rise on resources, but they endure on sincerity, and she gave both without hesitation. She stood firm when hostility surrounded, when mockery echoed through familiar streets, when isolation threatened morale. Loneliness is heavier when it follows conviction, yet she carried it with dignity. She did not measure success by immediate outcomes, but by faithfulness to purpose. Trials did not surprise her. She expected difficulty when truth disrupts false comfort. What mattered was not ease, but alignment. In her presence, love was empowering, not consuming. She strengthened rather than overshadowed. She believed without competing. She supported without diminishing. Hers was a partnership rooted in mutual respect and shared values, where belief was nurtured, not negotiated. She did not see faith as a role to perform, but as a reality to uphold, especially when circumstances pressed hardest. Motherhood, in her legacy, extends beyond lineage. It is spiritual, moral, enduring. She nurtured a community before it had shape. She carried concern for others even as her own comfort diminished. She embodied compassion not as reaction, but as identity. Her care was not selective, it was principled. She gave without calculating return, trusting that sincerity never truly depletes. When boycott tightened its grip and hunger tested resolve, she endured with patience that did not complain and strength that did not fracture. Privilege did not entitle her, it prepared her to sacrifice. Hardship did not harden her, it refined her. She understood that faith is not proven in abundance, but clarified in scarcity. And through it all, her presence remained a source of calm. Her steadiness a quiet resistance against despair. Her story challenges assumptions about strength. Strength does not always raise its voice. Sometimes it reassures, sometimes it listens, sometimes it absorbs pain so others can continue forward. Influence does not always stand at the front. Sometimes it holds everything together from behind the scenes. History often remembers those who speak, but it is sustained by those who support the speakers when the silence grows heavy. She teaches that belief begins with trust, that love is an act of courage, that loyalty is tested most when circumstances turn hostile. Her life is a reminder that the earliest supporters often bear the heaviest burdens, not knowing how far the impact of their sacrifice will reach. They give before outcomes are visible, before validation arrives, before success feels certain. In a world quick to celebrate visibility, her legacy honors constancy. In a culture obsessed with recognition, her life affirms quiet devotion. She did not seek applause, yet her influence echoes through every act of compassion that followed. She did not chase legacy, yet she became foundational to it. Her love was not fragile. It did not retreat in fear or collapse under strain. It stood firm in uncertainty and expanded in generosity. She believed when belief was costly. She trusted when trust carried risk. She gave when giving demanded everything. And through that, she became not just a partner in a mission, but a pillar beneath it. Her story invites reflection on the unseen roles that change history, on the hearts that believe before proof arrives, on the hands that give without assurance of return, on the souls that steady others when fear threatens to overwhelm. She reminds us that the greatest transformations often begin in private moments of courage long before the world notices. Faith, through her example, is not loud certainty, but grounded assurance. Love is not possession, but protection. Strength is not dominance, but steadfastness, and sacrifice, when offered sincerely, becomes light that continues to guide long after the giver is gone. Her example reframes what it means to be first. First is not always about visibility or chronology alone. It is about courage at the point of uncertainty. It is about stepping forward when the future is unclear and the cost is known. Being first means bearing the weight before others understand why it must be carried. It means believing without witnesses, giving without guarantees, standing firm when retreat would be easier and socially acceptable. She understood the psychology of fear and the power of reassurance. When anxiety threatens to fracture resolve, logic wrapped in compassion becomes an anchor. She did not dismiss fear as weakness. She addressed it with truth. She reminded a trembling heart of its history of goodness, of patterns of mercy already lived, of a life that had never betrayed trust. She knew that reassurance grounded in evidence is stronger than comfort grounded in denial. Her insight teaches that faith does not ignore reality, it interprets it through a higher lens. She saw trials not as signs of abandonment, but as confirmations of purpose. Difficulty did not mean deviation, it meant direction. She recognized that when truth enters the world, resistance follows, and that resistance often intensifies precisely because truth is doing its work. She modeled a form of resilience that is deeply relational. She did not isolate strength within herself, she shared it. She absorbed shock so another could regain footing. She redistributed fear by carrying more of it herself. This is a form of leadership rarely acknowledged yet absolutely essential. It is leadership that stabilizes rather than dominates, that fortifies rather than commands. Her generosity was strategic in its sincerity. She understood that resources are tools, not trophies. Wealth is tested not by accumulation, but by deployment. When the moment came, she did not hesitate or negotiate with her conscience. She invested in what mattered most, knowing that material loss is temporary, but moral failure leaves lasting scars. She spent to protect truth, to preserve dignity, to keep hope alive when external pressures threaten to suffocate it. She also teaches discernment. Support does not mean blind agreement, it means alignment with values. She believed because belief was consistent with the character she had witnessed. Trust, for her, was not naive. It was informed by years of observation, by patterns of integrity that had proven themselves in the smallest details of daily life. She reminds us that faith grows best in the soil of credibility. In times of social pressure, she chose principle over popularity. She did not calculate how her stance would be received by peers or power brokers. She calculated whether it was right. That kind of moral clarity is rare, especially when reputation and comfort are at stake. She knew that social approval is fickle, but conscience is constant. And she chose to live in a way that protected the latter, even if it endangered the former. Her patience was not passive waiting, it was active endurance. She did not sit back and hope circumstances would improve. She endured with intention, with awareness, with resolve. She carried hardship without dramatizing it, pain without broadcasting it, sacrifice without demanding recognition. This restraint did not minimize her suffering, it dignified it. She challenges modern assumptions about empowerment. Empowerment in her life was not about dominance or visibility. It was about influence rooted in values. It was about shaping outcomes through wisdom, timing, and unwavering support. She did not need to stand at the podium to shape the message. She strengthened the messenger so the message could stand on its own. Her role reminds us that every transformative mission requires sanctuaries, places and people where vulnerability is safe, where doubt can be expressed without judgment, where strength is replenished rather than demanded. She was that sanctuary. She created emotional safety in a world growing increasingly hostile, and that safety became fuel for perseverance. She also teaches the importance of believing in people before they believe fully in themselves. At moments when the burden felt overwhelming, her confidence became a mirror reflecting potential and purpose. She did not flatter, she affirmed truth. She did not exaggerate, she clarified. She helped another see what fear was temporarily obscuring. Her motherhood extends into meaning. It is the nurturing of faith, the protection of values, the cultivation of resilience in others. It is the quiet shaping of hearts that will one day shape the world. She mothered a mission, guarded its early steps, protected it from being crushed before it could walk on its own. This kind of motherhood is not confined to biology. It is legacy through care. When loss eventually came, it did not erase her impact. It revealed it. The absence of such a presence was felt deeply because it had been foundational. The weight of that loss testified to the magnitude of her contribution. She had given so fully that her departure created a silence heavy with gratitude and grief. Her story invites those who feel unseen to reconsider their worth. It tells the supporter, the believer, the one standing behind the scenes, that their role is not secondary. It is essential. Movements collapse without pillars. And she was a pillar, not ornamental but load-bearing, not temporary but foundational. She reminds us that love can be an act of worship, that loyalty can be a form of courage, that patience can be a strategy rather than a surrender. She teaches that belief expressed through action carries a resonance that words alone cannot achieve. In a time when noise often masquerades as influence, her quiet resolve stands as a corrective. In a culture that equates strength with control, her steadiness redefines it as consistency. In an age obsessed with self-promotion, her self-giving becomes revolutionary. Her life urges reflection on what we are willing to give up for what we believe, on whether our convictions cost us anything, on whether our love shows up most when it is inconvenient, risky, or misunderstood. She demonstrates that sincerity is proven when sacrifice is real. Her example continues to whisper to hearts across generations, reminding them that the earliest supporters often carry the heaviest loads, that faith is sometimes a lonely path at first, and that the most profound contributions are not always immediately recognized, but they endure. They shape outcomes long after the moment has passed. They anchor truth in its most fragile beginnings. That anchoring of truth at its most fragile beginnings reveals a deeper lesson about timing and trust. She understood that beginnings are delicate, easily disrupted, and often misunderstood. What is new rarely arrives with applause. It arrives with questions, suspicion, and resistance. She did not require certainty to commit. She committed so that certainty could one day emerge. That is a courage few possess. The courage to invest in what is unseen, to protect what is vulnerable, to nurture what others dismiss. She teaches that belief is not always loud affirmation. Sometimes it is silent endurance. Sometimes it is staying when leaving would be easier. Sometimes it is giving when holding back would be safer. The world often celebrates dramatic acts of faith, but her legacy highlights the sustained, quiet acts that actually keep missions alive. The kind of faith that wakes up every day and chooses loyalty again, even when the cost continues to rise. Her wisdom also lay in emotional intelligence. She knew when to speak and when silence was more powerful. She knew when reassurance was needed and when space was required. She did not impose strength, she offered it. She did not overwhelm, she steadied. This sensitivity did not make her fragile. It made her formidable in a way that strength alone could never accomplish. She understood that truth does not only need defenders, it needs nurturers. It needs environments where it can grow without being crushed by expectation or hostility. She provided that environment. She created a home where integrity was normal, where sincerity was protected, where fear could be acknowledged without becoming dominant. That space allowed conviction to mature into resilience. Her life challenges the idea that influence must be public to be powerful. Some of the most decisive moments in history unfold away from crowds, in private rooms, in quiet conversations, in moments of reassurance that never make it into records but echo through consequences. She shaped outcomes not by commanding events but by strengthening the heart that would face them. She also exemplifies moral foresight. She recognized early that the cost would increase before relief arrived, that opposition would harden before it softened, that isolation would intensify before acceptance followed. And still, she stayed. This was not blind optimism, it was informed commitment. She knew the nature of truth in a resistant world, and she prepared herself accordingly. Her generosity was not reckless, it was intentional. She gave in a way that sustained, not just inspired. She did not exhaust resources impulsively. She deployed them wisely, knowing that endurance requires planning. Even in sacrifice, there was strategy. Even in hardship, there was wisdom. She balanced trust in the unseen with responsibility in the seen. She also teaches us about partnership grounded in respect. There was no competition for validation, no struggle for dominance, no insecurity in supporting rather than leading publicly. Her confidence did not depend on recognition. It was rooted in purpose. She understood that roles do not determine value. Contribution does. And she chose the role that truth required, not the one that ego might prefer. Her presence corrected without humiliating, advised without controlling, supported without suffocating. This balance is rare. It requires self-awareness, humility, and deep trust. She trusted the mission, trusted the message, and trusted the one carrying it. That trust became a stabilizing force when external trust was scarce. She endured seasons where progress seemed invisible, where effort did not immediately yield relief, where sacrifice accumulated without tangible reward. These are the moments where belief is tested most severely, not by opposition, but by delay. She teaches that delay does not equal denial, and that unseen growth is still growth. Her patience was anchored in meaning. She did not wait aimlessly, she waited with intention. Every day of endurance was an act of alignment with purpose. Every moment of sacrifice was a reaffirmation of belief. She turned waiting into worship, endurance into devotion. She reminds us that love, when rooted in values, becomes a source of extraordinary resilience. This was not love that demanded comfort, it produced courage. Not love that avoided hardship, it absorbed it. Not love that sought ease, it chose meaning. Through this love, fear lost its grip and hope found room to breathe. Her story also reframed success. Success in her life was not measured by outcomes she lived to see, but by foundations she helped lay. She invested in a future she would not fully witness, trusting that sincerity outlives its originator. This is a vision that transcends self-interest and expands responsibility beyond personal timelines. She challenges those who believe they must be seen to matter. She speaks to those who feel their sacrifices are unnoticed, their efforts uncelebrated. She reminds them that the most critical supports are often invisible, and that invisibility does not equal insignificance. Pillars are rarely admired, but nothing stands without them. Her example also cautions against reducing strength to aggression or dominance. Strength in her life was consistency under pressure. It was clarity in confusion. It was calm in crisis. It was generosity in scarcity. This kind of strength does not announce itself, it proves itself over time. She understood that faith matures through testing, not through ease. That conviction deepens through sacrifice, not through convenience. That sincerity is refined when choices are costly. And she accepted that refinement willingly, trusting that what emerges from it is more durable, more authentic, more transformative. Her legacy continues to shape how belief is understood, not as abstraction, but as lived reality. Not as words spoken in safety, but as actions taken in risk. Not as theory discussed after success, but as commitment chosen before outcomes were guaranteed. She leaves behind a quiet challenge to ask ourselves who we are when belief becomes expensive, who we are when support requires sacrifice, who we are when truth isolates rather than elevates. She shows that greatness is not always found at the center of attention, but often at the center of endurance. Through her, we learn that love can be a form of leadership, that loyalty can shape history, that patience can carry revolutions through their most fragile stages. She teaches that the unseen moments matter, that the private decisions ripple outward, that the earliest sacrifices often determine the strength of everything that follows. Her life continues to call out to those willing to believe early, to support deeply, to give sincerely, to stand firm quietly. To those who understand that changing the world does not always begin with being known, but with being faithful.